Hello, hello! Today I'm going to be heading back to my roots. I'm going to be working on a mini high heel shoe repaint. In short, I purchased a ton of mini high heels from the thrift store. Some of them are like broken and scratched, some are in decent condition, and I have been slowly working my way through them. Literally one of my very first videos on this channel was actually one of them, so hence the going back to my roots. Anyway, if you've been around at all, you've probably seen one of my shoe repaints. I've done Medusa, Baba Yaga, and Jabaro, who is the siren from Love, Death, and Robots. And what you may have found in common is that they are all people or deities of myth, which brings me to today's project. So I am actually doing a pairing from Roman mythology this time, which is shockingly inspired by Valentine's Day, Venus and her child Cupid. For the unawares, Venus is the goddess of love, beauty, and fertility in Roman mythology. Her son Cupid is the god of desire, attraction, and affection. And they had kind of a mischievous relationship. Venus used Cupid to manipulate humans most of the time. You know how those gods are. So this particular piece was inspired by the story of Venus becoming jealous over a human named Psyche, and she was considered the most beautiful human. So she sends Cupid to make her fall in love with somebody unworthy so that she can basically be forgotten. But instead, Cupid accidentally pricks himself with his own arrow and falls for her. So obviously I'm going to shove that entire story, plus a little bit more, into this little 2 by 3 by 1 shoe. So yeah, let's do it. The first thing I need to do is replace this heel. So, just a couple quick taps of a broken X-Acto knife and voila. Okay, fine. I needed a Dremel, but my garage workshop's not set up for filming yet, so you're just gonna have to imagine that magic happening. And quick round of sanding and we're ready to dig out the clay. First thing that I wanted to build was a cage, and this will eventually become the shoe's new heel, so I'm going to replace what I cut off. This part was easy enough. It was just a quick circle to make like a little trim for the base of the cage, which is basically like a flat bowl. I did add some tiny holes so I could add wire later, and then I just left it to dry. Inside the cage will be an anatomically correct heart, the best I can make in less than an inch size. I think I did okay with this until I decided to get fancy and add like blood drips to the side, and that really just made it look like it was bloated after. Minor regrets there, but that's okay. Again, it's less than an inch in size. I don't think anyone's gonna notice. Or maybe Cupid just has a lot of love to give, okay? Anyway, eventually I will shove a wire through the heart and I will make that into a golden arrow, and this of course is going to represent Cupid, pricking his heart with his own golden arrow. And the cage will represent the next part of the story, which is Cupid refusing to let Psyche see him. So he visits her only at nighttime where, it's literally dark and she can't see, and he's desperate for her to fall in love with him for him, not because of his godly good looks or the fact that he is a god or, his magic golden arrow doing the work. So that's where this concept comes from. Anyway, moving on. Slapped on a quick coat of gesso on the shoe, and then I followed that with a coat of ochre and then gold metallic paint. Now the ochre. Now I'm confusing myself. It's ochre, right? Anyway, it provides a good base, like similar to the final coat, since like metallic colors tend to be at least somewhat translucent. So instead of having to do multiple coats of metallic, you just put something close to the final color on there and it requires a solid base for it, and then just a single coat of the gold and we're done. Now after it was painted, I rolled the clay into little snakes and I draped them along the shoe in like varying lengths and sizes and drapey styles, and I want these to be vines. And then I also made some roses, which were super simple. Just rolled out a flat piece of clay, and then cut out little tiny circles and then just rolled the circles together to literally just be petals and pile them up into varying sizes. And then I cut off like the stems because I needed them to be flat in this case, and voila, tons of little roses. And once that was dry, then I was able to attach to the shoe base using E6000 glue. And then it was on to basically the last step, which is painting. So for the vines and the leaves, I painted them a couple shades of green. And I did this sort of like lazy style in that I put 2 colors on my palette, and then I just randomly picked up one or both of the colors on my brush and painted the areas. So it was like constantly varying as opposed to painting in the variants, if that makes any sense. For the roses, I painted them red, which was an ode to Venus, who ran through a rose patch to save her lover, Adonis, I think. And as she ran through it, the thorns were cutting up her feet and legs and staining the white roses red. And that's sort of the story of how red roses became a thing. The things we do for love. Anyway, next up, to complete the cage, I stuck an eye pin through the top of the heart and then an O-ring attached to that. And then for the cage itself, I cut some equal pieces of wire, and I actually had 4 to begin with, but it was too many for the size, so I scaled back to 3. But yeah, so I just cut them to length, and then I curved them over, and then I slid the O-ring onto the wires before I then glued the wires into place inside of the cage base. And boom, cage of horror. And then I had to attach the cage into place. Now, I did try to take the easy way out. I tried using the E6000, I tried hot glue, tried using both of them, and it just wasn't attaching it as permanently as I wanted it to. So I did leave it until this point so that I could press on a piece of clay onto the back heel area and then press the cage into that and attach it that way. But when I did this, it also raised up because I added a little bit of height to the back of the shoe, so now the front of the shoe didn't touch the ground, so I did have to add a little bit of a base to the front to raise that up to meet it. But then when they were dry, I just painted them gold and you can't even tell. And then it was just a million touch-ups. Seriously, the touch-ups probably were the longest part of this entire project. Because every time you touched up one area, now you need to touch up another area, and now you have to retouch up the other areas. I did add some highlights to everything, so I just used a dry brush with kind of a cream color, and I added that to basically everything. And then I used dark washes of like really dark red and a really dark green and black, and I added that in varying coats, covering the highlights that I had put in, so it gave a lot of different variances in the color. I think it worked out. The different colors kind of sank into the different cracks and shadows and really brought different dimensions to everything. So it was a very easy painting style and kind of fun, and everything's very colorful for only using, a few different colors on this project. When you look deeply at it, like there's a lot of variance in the colors. So that's kind of cool. The final step, just slapped on a couple coats of glossy varnish and complete. So this is where we started and this is where we ended. I love this. Again, like I said, it was kind of super easy and quick, minus the million touch-ups. But it was kind of a fun spin on Venus and Cupid, and it was kind of fun putting them as a combo as opposed to something more traditional like doing Cupid and Psyche. Of course, it was mostly Cupid in this project, but I felt like an ode to Venus was necessary to understanding why Cupid felt he needed to do what he did. Anyway, this is not a mythology YouTube, so I'll let you look up the stories and the myths. It does differ a little bit, the Roman myth versus Aphrodite's myth in Greek mythology, but still fascinating nonetheless. Love it. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this project as much as I did, and if you did, please hit like and subscribe. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye!